we go. Hey, everybody. Hope you can hear me. Hope you guys are doing well. I noticed that I'm kind of up here, and it's like, yeah, totally new song, guys. Listen, we like to mix it up things around here, right? That's how we roll. That's how we do it. If you are not on my website yet, you probably should be, because you never know when they're going to come knocking. You never know when they're going to come in and go, hey, B, you can't do this here anymore. Oh, yeah, that's their way of doing it. We're still freezing. By the way, a little update. The new and improved, all-inclusive awesomeness that is the new web equipment sitting in back. Just didn't have time to install it. So we're going to let it rip today. Yeah. Next time you see me, it'll be a different world. I'm going to actually have it installed in the morning properly by people that know what the heck they're doing. Although I'm sure there are easy to follow instructions. Oh, this is just a freaking nightmare. Total nightmare. Now my computer's frozen. Everything's kind of freezing here. Hold on a second. I don't know why. So 2 things were identified is that the streaming platform is kind of like a hokey old school thing. And what happens is that it just slowly kind of depletes over time. And it's how they get you. You know, it's the reason why you got to buy a car every 10 or 12 years. It's the way it goes. Totally goes. I'm wondering if I should hotspot this and just go. So, dude, what's going on here? Yep, I'm going to try this. Turn my phone into a hotspot. I can't believe this. So we're rejoicing in upstate New York because it hit 42 degrees today. 42 degrees. And I don't know if you guys know this or not, but being able to have that right now, just awesome sauce. Totally awesome sauce. Give me 30 seconds here, guys. Give me 30 seconds. Let's try this. Hey, looks like all of a sudden we're fine. Guess what? We're going through my phone right now. Seeing 50s, seeing 30s. Oh my gosh, you guys are awesome. Yeah, now we froze again. I think the other... We're just going to keep going. We're going to deal with this one more day. We got the equipment back there. It takes about an hour to install, so I got to do it the right way. Couldn't do a rush job and just plug it in. It's all good. Here we go. So, if you're not on tbrandonross.com, you're going to want to put your digits in there. Make sure I know where your email is, because later on this week, you are going to get a heck of an email from me. Because funny you should say that, is going to be re-released. And you're like, but Brandon, I already got my copy. It's like, thank you very much. Well, I don't believe in just like retreading things, and it's kind of like a greatest hits album, you know, like you got all the songs, right? They got to add on something else. So what I did is I also added in a couple of new stories, kind of some updated things. You know, one of them, just a couple of fun stories, right? And the other part of it that I'm going to be doing, because, you know, listen, I can just listen to him talk. I don't need to. I've probably told parts of the story, but this will be kind of a fun thing. But one of the things that I decided to do is I went ahead and I also made it so that yes, I did get the picture of the tattoo. That was a freaking riot, by the way. I should actually write a story about that and put it in the book. By the way, those of you that missed it, you might want to join the online circle next time I do one. Friggin' hysterical. All this time I thought it was a sunflower, right? When we get there, though, I really like to add in things. So first of all, I want to remind you guys, monthly tarot club, you can sign up. basically, in a nutshell, if you sign up now, you're not going to get billed until March. You bill for the following month. What you get with that is the deck of the month. Got it somewhere. Showed it last time. We'll save it for the shuffle up and heal. Right? So a few of you have jumped on that, handful of you, quite a few of you. Fantastic. But we're going to limit it. We're only going to have probably about 15 more that can jump on. We got to build this the right way because you got to buy the cards beforehand, all that other stuff. But just to kind of let you know, right? And then, yes, it was online. All you had to do was just sign up. It's okay. I got another one coming. It's all good. It's all good. But why stop there? Don't forget, you can still sign up for Sandy's Crystal Healer class. A few things have changed, but send her an email. Send it right there. You know where you're going to. You are going to send it to crystalsforthejourney@gmail.com, right down here. Right? Crystals for the Journey. Right? And by the way, great class. A few of you signed up. A couple of changes. Send her a message. She'll fill you in, right? You signed up yesterday. That's awesome, Brenda. Love it, love it, love it. But here's my surprise. You're going to be able to get this really kind of cool, fun shirt. Look at how bright and shiny and lovely that is. It's got a little bit of a je ne sais quoi to it, right? A little bit of 60s. A little bit of green-tinted 60s mind. A little bit of T. Brandon Russ out there. Oh, and by the way, we do read banned books, motherfucker. By the way, you can't swear in the first 10 minutes. Are we at 10 minutes? Somebody let me know when I'm at 10 minutes. My coffee's good. Sandy's class is amazing. Look at that. Brenda, thanks so much for bringing that up. Little bit of a 60s feel. Hope you enjoy it. By the way, you can get both the book reissuance signed by me and this shirt together. It's 10 minutes somewhere. Hattie, I love your attitude. Hattie knows what she's talking about. By the way, I love how people have like a total bravado in the room, but then when they show up to a message circle, they're a totally different person. Like, you don't know who I am. Yes, I do. I love that you guys love this. So let's talk about the world right now. By the way, I will go back to this because I'm really digging this. Couple of things. We've identified some challenges with this. This is the mock-up. This is what it's going to look like, kind of, sort of. We got a few things we're ironing out. All good. Not open for commentary. Just wanted to give you a little bit of a feel. Get you excited for it. It's going to be only way to go. I reckon it's only in black. Well, that's what we're playing around with. We're also playing around with a little bit of the color scheme. So hang in there, kids. Hang in there. Because I do know that I have quite a few of you in places like Florida, in places like Georgia, in places like Tennessee, and let's not forget Texas. By the way, next time we wrap this up around here, I'm going to have dates in Texas again. I'll see you guys in early May. I heard it's Cinco de Mayo. It's kind of becoming a thing for me, and I'm okay with that. Does anyone really care? We all care, right? The new book is worth it because you're going to really like that, right? It's all good. By the way, what you get with this, with the tarot class, by the way, the tarot class, not only are you going to get a deck of the month, you're also going to get a class about that deck with me. So we're going to actually be talking about the thematic things. You're also going to have some access to another thing that's going to be coming out a little bit later on this year. It is going to give you access on the basis of tarot, my art and science of tarot. It's kind of a cool thing. Working on it. Yes. So, yeah, let's talk about Marcone here. Let's talk about what's going on in the world, right? By the way, I have to change up my branding here. What in the heck fire is this? Good Lord, everybody hang on, right? So, as we know, Marcone is actually the Prime Minister of France. And although he kind of stood his ground, he also kind of said, like, whatever it is to end it. And by the way, I don't think Marcone is actually siding with Russia on this. I don't think he's actually siding with the United States. I also think he knows when to tell a man that, like, you can negotiate with a Frenchman, but you haven't been a Frenchman until you've been with a Frenchman. Are you understanding what I'm saying? This picture says a lot. So what's new in the news? What's new in the world? Why are we challenged? I'm going to tell you why we're challenged. We're challenged because France is kind of rolling over a little bit, but I understand why. I'm not blaming them. This isn't calling people out. This is us getting to a point like, let's stop bombing children. Let's stop bombing schools and hospitals and other soldiers for that matter. Ukraine has to get their act together. They're going to lose parts of their country as predicted. They're going to lose things that are not going to necessarily resonate with them, but they sure as hell put up a bigger fight than what they thought. Russia could not sustain this war anymore. Let's be honest. So they are asking his boyfriend, Donald Trump. Vladimir Putin is asking his boyfriend, Donald Trump, to go around the world and kind of be like, here you go. Now, when we were backing Ukraine, we were literally denouncing Russia. The Biden administration actually did that at large. I will also tell you that Vladimir Putin absolutely did his love bombing, figuratively and literally, for Donald Trump with the invasion of Ukraine. Because, of course, Donald J. Trump, the president of the United States, the convicted felon, the rapist, decided to say, hey, Vladimir Zelensky, could you please dig up some dirt on Joe Biden? In which case he said, if we come across it, we're happy to divulge it and use it through proper channels. But we are not going to accidentally find something or otherwise make it up on Joe Biden. By the way, they have actually proven under scrutiny that there's really nothing there. He had some dealings with them, but that's kind of like Donald Trump. You actually have an entire dossier about you in Russia, and then he says, yeah, but I have a couple of hotels, so that's probably what it is. The reality is that Joe Biden really probably had some minor dealings, and he might have made a couple of bucks on it. But it didn't rise to the level of what we would have once upon a time called criminal. However, Donald Trump wanted it to be because he was losing an election run. So if the narrative doesn't fit, go find a new narrative. And if that doesn't work, just make shit up. This wholesale manipulation, what we're going to actually see in the future is people are going to come to Donald Trump. They're going to hold his hand like this, completely emasculate him, and then be able to say to him, yeah, sure, Donnie, whatever it is that you need. So then they actually ultimately get what they want, but they refuse to bow down. This is the part that should be dangerous to you, though. And I don't care which side of the aisle you're on. We wholesale denounced Vladimir Putin's move to take over Ukraine. We did that for 4 solid years. By the way, we believed in it as a nation. Even if you were anti-Ukraine, which I don't even know how you could have been, because, oh, we shouldn't be spending the money and blah, 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 and all that other stuff. Fine. I get it. I respect it, by the way. I do respect the need for the United States to get their act together fiscally. That's actually what my politics are. But this should scare the shit out of everybody. And by the way, I'm not in the business of scaring people. But to see that the U.S. voted against the UN resolution condemning Russia for the Ukraine war. We're willing to ignore logic now. We're willing to accept the idea that we can create a new narrative, which if we just say it long enough. You know, it's like, hey, you just stole that cookie. No, I didn't. You just stole that cookie. No, I didn't. You just stole that cookie. No, I didn't. No, I didn't. Well, yeah, you stole the cookie. No, I didn't. You stole the cookie. No. Well, did you know how many cookies were in there? No, but you stole a cookie. Yeah, but did you know that cookies come from another part of the world? Okay, but you stole the cookie. Did you know that cookies come in all shapes and sizes, and sometimes there's even chocolate chips and even coconut? Yes, you stole the cookie. Yeah, so listen, I actually like bagels better. Okay, but you stole the cookie. Okay, yeah, but don't you know that palm trees grow in the air? Yeah, you stole a cookie. Do you see what they're doing? They're creating this narrative of changing the goalpost to make it non-topical, to make it so that then they can change and manipulate anything that you once logically saw. By the way, it's an insult to your intelligence. It's also an insult to your intuition. That's why we get up every morning and we go, oh, geez. That's why we have to take these things in doses. That's why I actually shut this off on Friday going into Saturday, going into Sunday. I just couldn't take it. I had to binge watch a little bit tonight to get caught up in it. But I'm going to be talking about the astrology here in a little bit and what it means for you personally when it comes to Venus, because we're about to go Venus retrograde March 1st. But I'm going to tell you, some of you signs are really going to luck out. But the UN kind of asking us to kind of go. And by the way, we've actually asked to get off of all sorts of boards and petitions. We no longer want to be involved with the peace treaties. We no longer want to be. It's bad news, guys. You cannot simultaneously plan for peace and plan for war. We are planning for war. The Trump administration is planning for war with its own people, with everybody that has been an ally, Canada included. Oh, and this fucking dipshit. I don't want to judge anybody morally, but this coding cowboy is leading Doge. And as much as he goes out there and talks about this gigantic ability to find all sorts of money everywhere, right? All sorts of money. We found money here. We found money there. Well, they're boasting about finding people that are still on the rent rolls for Social Security. However, his coders, his programmers went in there to find these things, right? The biggest problem that I have with this is the narrative, because what they actually found was a coding error. But instead of saying there is a glitch and an error that makes it go back to the 1800s, that would make people 150 plus years old in the system, because they either cannot remove them because of some sort of approval level or whatever. Their workaround was to make them so old that they wouldn't be quote unquote eligible. What they reported was that these people were actually still receiving money. This is why you use auditors instead of editors here. Because if you have an auditor, the auditor would have said, hey, we have somebody that was born in 1878. Let's go ahead and just start to kind of look for this. Because by proxy, seeing that somebody is in a system that's backdated, that shouldn't be receiving it, by all intents and purposes should be dead, you still have to do what's known as an audit trail. Anybody with a 5th grade reading level that understands how, when you get caught with the cookie jar, how you backtrack and figure out how you did the crime. Cowboy Elon decided to just blame everybody and say, look at what we found. I want better from the government as a whole. And by the way, I wanted it with previous administrations. Didn't get it then either. So now we have this fucking idiot running up an efficiency program where his coders didn't even recognize that there was a default of removal. And when they didn't have a high enough priority to be able to override the system and take them out, they just made them old enough to make them irrelevant in the system. They got rid of everybody that had that knowledge. Then they turned around and boasted that they found the best thing ever. Here's the part that should scare you. Now Doge is turning around going, look at all this money that we found. We should probably give everybody $1. I want to bring you back to the debate. Well, we have a concept of a plan. This should scare everyone. We will no longer be in the world's favor. We no longer use critical thinking skills. We no longer have a plan. We just want to win. We just want to be number one. We just want to beat up a Canadian because they booed us. Fucking children. And this guy, who, by the way, should be deported as soon as you pull the 14th. Hello? Oh, by the way, you know who else would be deported? You guys are going to love this. I've done my work today. I mean, listen. Vivek Ramaswamy says those two brothers in arms are picking apart this Doge idea. By the way, Vivek Ramaswamy. I do apologize if I said his name wrong. Wanted to do away with the FBI. Actually, that was his platform when he ran against Trump. Right? Oh, and by the way, let me get to the astrology. I'm going to tell you what's going on. Your dialogue here is terrible. And by the way, he was like, "What do you want to do? Do you want to run the FBI?" And he goes, "Oh no, I'm not in good shape with this. You should go with my friend over here." Ding. Cash. Is there anything better? I mean, why wouldn't he hire a guy named Cash? I mean, let's kind of pick that apart, right? By the way, both Vivek and Cash would be deported in 2.3 seconds. Both were born of immigrant parents with naturalization. Oh, and by the way, of Elon's 14, 15, 18 children, 12 of them aren't even American, aren't even, United States citizens, which, whatever, I don't care. This isn't a judgment thing. But he in no way, shape, or form is actually acting on behalf of the future of America. He's acting on the whims of a madman. Oh, but here comes Cash. Oh, yeah. And by the way, all three of the older Trump children. Oh, yeah, Melania. Oh, yeah, Barron. Yeah, Barron. Right? Cash Patel looks like the 12-year-old that says, sure, I can do that. And they have some modicum of understanding of what the word salad he needs to say. If you watch any of his appointment hearing, there were actually some things that he said that were actually kind of okay. But when you look at his entire body of work and the people that he grifted on to get to where he is, he's a lawyer. He actually was the person. I want to understand why it is that he's in the position he's in. He went in front of Congress and pleaded the fifth when they asked him about his protection of Donald Trump with the document case. That is the reason why he's holding his right hand up right now. The last time he held up his hand like that in front of Congress, he was pleading the fifth so he didn't have to narc on his Trump buddy. It's just obvious, guys. It's just obvious. And by the way, you can talk about, oh, it's been that way forever in Washington and blah, blah, blah. Stop. It is no longer an argument to me when you talk about the comparison of other people. And by the way, take that to heart with any of your Trumper friends. And by the way, you should still have some because they're keeping you around because they can't wait to tell you you're wrong. Or they, whenever they're feeling down, they just bring you near and they're like, do you have any more tears left for me? Punch them right in the crotch bone. Like, get them right where you can hear it. And let them know that you're no longer part of their equation. Convincing me isn't going to make him any less of an asshole or making the United States any greater than what it already is. Right? Now, what are we relying on? I'm going to tell you what we're relying on. We're relying on people like Chris Cluey, who was the former punter for the Minnesota Vikings, that went to the town hall. I think it was in Santa Barbara, Santa Monica. It was one of the Santa. And basically, they're by and large a conservative bastion in California. And nobody wants to take that away from them. But what they were doing was putting a plaque in the taxpayer dollars paid for this $8,000 plaque, whatever. Plaques run those dollars. To basically say a bastardization of Make America Great Again at MAGA. They wanted to say beholden to the king. We have had restaurants, food trucks, farms, production plants raided to find immigrants, illegal immigrants. And by the way, when you haven't gotten your due process, by the way, we were supposed to take their huddled masses. And basically, we told them to take a number. And then you're like, they take a number when they come in. And you're like, oh, what's your number? 423,873. Now serving number 9. That person's illegal until that number comes up because they're not able to get their due process. You do understand the basis of the immigration issue. The immigration issue isn't that people aren't wanting to be naturalized or become citizens or whatever. It's because we have a very rigid set of laws, which, by the way, are important because part of that is actually vetting. Part of that is actually putting somebody through the process, right? It's actually putting them there. Oh, yeah, by the way, I'm going to talk about that Idaho woman here in a second. By the way, in case you're wondering, there's a couple of videos out there about that Idaho woman who got into a shouting match at a town hall because she basically posed her opinion. Now, did she go out of order? Yeah. But basically, the guy's like, hey, listen, you can't be here. This is private property at a public hearing, by the way. And then people were actually jumping on her going, it's private property. They can tell her to shut up and leave. And I'm like, that's not how private property works. Because that would mean that you could go on and just beat people up because they were in your house. And be okay because it's the law, because it's my private property. They were invited in. It's the old vampire theory. If you invite them in, then it's on you, right? You can't invade. You have to invite them in. So then this woman basically stands up. Guy sat right behind him with the phone. Bloop. He's going to be brought up on assault charges. The undercover deputy sheriff on triple secret double probation, who's sitting there basically rambling off a whole bunch of rules and laws that just fucking are nonsense. He pulled them out of his ass, and I don't even think they were that clean. She absolutely they wanted to quiet her, period. End of story. Chris Cluey, who stood up and then said, I am now going to basically get arrested. I'm going to do the time-honored tradition. I forget how he phrased it. But he basically said, I'm going to dissent. And I'm going to sit right here until you guys arrest me. And by the way, they're going to hold him. They're going to ask him what crime, and they're going to say disruption. They're going to be like, here's your $100 ticket. By the way, don't go a minute over the speed limit anymore. There have been reports about people being pulled over through 3 and 4 miles an hour over the speed limit. Reason being, because all of their funding is being cut off, and it's the only way that these municipalities are going to be able to sustain. I mean, I hope you guys are ready for this. Hey, but how's your egg prices doing? Hey, how's the stock market doing? Civil disobedience, thank you very much, Anne. I appreciate that. I am now going to participate in the age-honored tradition of civil disobedience. That's what he said. Chris Cluey, by the way, career Viking. Heck of a punter during its kind of during the Vikings' kind of shady time. Right? He wasn't disruptive at all. He came up and he sat down. So let's take a look. I haven't looked at the stock market since Friday. The stock market was kind of the thing that I was like, yeah, no. Wow, look at that. We've really been able to rally. We're up 33 points today, which, okay. The NASDAQ is down another almost 1.5%, 1.2%. Sorry. Let's not make up things. That's the other side. Would you look at this? The top gainers were QVC. The top losers are Target, Silver, and we're actually weak against the euro now. Go figure. I'm kind of surprised. And by the way, I have a perusal understanding of the market. I got out of the market a couple of years ago because I kind of saw that this is Verizon been kind of Oppo. What does that mean? It's called Skull. When you root for the Vikings, it's Skull. Verizon stock. Yeah, by the way, Microsoft is in a tailspin. Apple is up again based on 25 analysts. Verizon is a buy because they are going to because they're going head to head with Elon. They're creating off-planet telecommunications. So again, purely for entertainment value. One of the challenges that I've had with the stock market is that You watch all the digital currency coming correct. You're seeing the weakening of a dollar, and the destabilization of it is exactly what people want that own digital coin. Before the end of the Trump presidency, before anybody gets to him, before anybody leaves, before whatever's supposed to happen, right? Donald Trump will move the United States economy based from fiat money to digital coins, which he has heavily leveraged against in order for him to maintain his innocence in all of this. Right? Here we go. So let's talk about the astrology. I wish this is a little bit bigger. I want to talk about March 1st, not just because it's my birthday. You're welcome. No happy birthdays if you didn't know beforehand. Facebook can't remind you. But we have a really cool thing that's going to go on. And I want to talk about Venus here for a second. Venus, in its natural setting, is about love and beauty. It's about, when it's turned on yourself, it's about self-respect, personal tenure, like in other words, like what you love, your standard, all of that. It also represents the idea of making sure that things are right in your world, making sure that you are receiving the proper connections, that you're able to see what you're meant to see, all of those things, right? Oh, and by the way, when it comes to the economy, you can do things like participate in all of the non-purchasing days, right? It's out there. You can look them up. I don't want to promote it, but I will tell you I'll be participating, right? But taking a look at what is about to happen with Venus retrograde. Now, let's talk about this. Astrologically, actually astronomy-wise, what happens is that it appears to go backwards in the sky. That's what a retrograde is, right? Retrograde means it's moving backwards. It's doing a little moonwalk. It's doing a little Michael Jackson, right? Din, 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 din. Annie, are you okay? Well, Venus going into retrograde here is making us review things. Now, it's starting out in Aries, and it's going to move backwards into Pisces again. Pisces is actually a very comfortable placement for that for whole sorts of reasons. We're talking about exaltations and all that other good stuff. But as it moves backward from about 10 degrees Aries back into about 24 degrees Pisces, it's going to take about 7 weeks. We're going to go about 6 weeks, rather. We're going to go from March 1st to April 6th. Self-editing, 5 weeks. That's going to allow us to go through the motions of reserving the right to change, both in what you enjoy, what you love, and what you want to get right. This is a way for you to dust off your Bob Ross kit. It's a way for you to get your typewriter back out, your word processor, whatever you have, right? It's also an opportunity for you to look at your different stuff with your home life, with your love life, with your friendship groups. You're going to pick it apart. Aries is going to be heavy, obviously, in the first house with self-identity. Having this retrograde start in Aries, of course, kind of representing the first house, if you're going to look at it in terms of astrological time changes. Don't follow necessarily what's here, but rather take a look at it in terms of like what it helps you understand, which house it's going to affect. It's happening in Aries as the first house Aries. That's where it goes, right? But as you move backwards and you move into Taurus, Taurus is going to have challenges here, or at least vibrationally in the 12th house. So Taurus rising, your 12th house is going to be affected because what's going to happen there is you're going to be presenting yourself with new challenges of depths. You're going to go a whole lot deeper. You're just not going to break out the Bob Ross stuff. You're going to do a freaking mural. You're going to dive in deep with that. Gemini, it's going to affect your 11th house, right? Gemini risings in particular. It's going to really affect your 11th house. This is about your communications within your ultimate community, so to speak. It's also going to make you tailor your messaging to be like, nope, it's creating a standard. You're not going to put up with the stuff. You're going to say, no, I don't like that. Cancerians are going to be working with the 10th house, your reputation, your work. This is job changes, Cancer rising. This is being able to kind of like tackle work conflict and come out ahead by saying, nope, this is the thing here, right? Then we're gonna keep going with oh gosh, of course. Leo rising, we're dealing with a lot of stuff in the 9th house with our discovery, our depth of understanding, our connections. Our faith is being challenged. We're beginning to really kind of work that. Virgo is going to take on the 8th house. The 8th house, of course, is other people's money, death and taxes. It is it's our presentation with how we deal with other people's stuff. And sometimes, as a Virgo rising, your true nature is going to be like, I'm out. I'm not dealing with it. But with Venus kind of helping this, you're going to go a little bit more in depth with it. And you're going to be okay to kind of help people and help them kind of work through it. I'm just going to keep going. Libra is going to be tackling that 6th house. So Libra risings are going to be dealing with a lot of kind of like personal conflict within themselves, but then also how you're treating your body, your routines, what have you. Look for this kind of like springtime action if you're a Libra rising to get into a new workout routine, to get into a new mindset type of thing. Finding something that you'll have like, hey, I really like this TV series is good for my head or whatever the deal is. It's about a new routine for you to kind of walk into something good and new. Scorpio is going to be dealing with their creativity. What's interesting about this placement is that when Venus goes through Scorpio, or through the 5th house, when Venus goes through the 5th house, this is where you do turn your entire life into like a masterpiece. This is like highly awesome and creative energy. And the reason, understand the logic that I'm saying here with Scorpio rising, this is actually what's pictured right here, is you see where Venus will move basically in the 5th house. It's the activated house. That's where the retrograde begins. So that's why we say, hey, it's in the 5th house. It's going to bleed into the 4th house. But what that's going to mean is that Scorpio rising are going to make this new creative endeavor part of their life, part of their way of life, kind of into the family type of thing. And then, of course, you've got Sagittarius, which is really working out some of that root family stuff going on. It's actually going to help Sagittarius rising come to terms and let go of stuff that's no longer there. But, it's going to come up. It's going to deal with it. And then, of course, Capricorn rising every single time. Dealing with money. This is a double down on money for the Scorpio or for the Capricorn rising, because it's about the communication. And since it's bumping up against the 2nd house, you're going to deal with your money. It's kind of getting what you want and getting what you need here, Capricorn. It's kind of like what you need out of love, the Capricorn rising, is being able to say like, hey, this is what I need from you. And by the way, it doesn't mean that it's complicated. Don't overcomplicate Venus. Do not overcomplicate Venus. We will overcompensate when we get to the grand trine of Mars, Saturn, and Vesta. Like that is some hardcore lessons. Those are still sitting out there. We can talk about that another time. But do not do that, because then we're having Aquarius is dealing with those money issues. And then we have Pisces identifying with the changes that need to go into their personal value system. So everybody's got something here. Everybody's dealing with something somewhere. Venus goes into retrograde on March the 1st. This Saturday, everybody, goes to April the 6th. And by the way, in terms of this, right, we should get opportunities abound. If you're an astrologer, there are some tough placements in astrology. There are some tough placements, right? Some retrogrades kind of are tough. This is nothing, because one of the other things that happens too, you want to pay attention to March the 7th. Sorry, March the 22nd. That is when Venus and the Sun are conjunct. It is also happening. Murky Gatorade. I love that. March 27th is when Venus and the Sun are conjunct. It is also right after, and by the way, on March 21st is the you need to recognize that is the creator sign. That is the creator degreed angle. 00 Aries is the beginning of the astrological chart. It's actually the astrological new year, right? So in that astrological new year, you have to recognize that it is a celebration, right? Jim's birthday is on astrological New Year's Eve. Hattie's birthday is on January 2nd. Are you guys getting this yet? So astrologically, what's happening on that day is you are getting a giant reset. It's happening during a Venus retrograde right now. A week later, Venus and the Sun get together. I'm going to let you in on a little bit of my astrology. My Venus is conjunct to the Sun, which is why, I mean, that's where the looks come from. I'm just letting you know. Whenever you see Venus or Mercury conjunct to your Sun, it's kind of a curse. It's a blessing, but it's a curse. I'm saying that tongue in cheek, everybody. Calm down. Quit typing out your hate mail right now, would you? But when that happens, you find inner beauty. I also want you guys to notice how I took you from the primordial soup and the shit show that is going on with the people that are, quote, in charge into your internal balance to show you and tell you you got bigger things to worry about, and that's you. Cut it out. Let the yahoos be the yahoos. We have to worry about ourselves, our inner beauty. What should we focus in on? What should we be projecting? How should we make ourselves better every day? We're still in charge. And that's not a democratic statement. I want you to realize how easily the world gets manipulated by people with fear. I have kept my voice in even tone, yet I'm excited. I have allowed you to step into something that's bigger than you, but everything to do with you. I really want peace in the world. I don't want Palestine wiped off the map and turned into a condo complex. I actually really like the Canadians, and on behalf of all of the Americans south of your border, sorry, he got out. Somebody fed him after midnight. I don't know what that shit is. And the people of Mexico, I understand that your economic bind has hurt you. I also understand that we've put ourselves out there more than once with things like NAFTA and other funding programs. Some of the things didn't work, and we're still getting a lot of people here. We have to go back to the drawing board. But on behalf of all of the sane people in this country, we actually do want to work with you, Canada. We do want to work with you, Mexico. And by the way, Greenland, don't fall for it. He just wants your iron ore. He wants the strategic placement so Russia can sleep at night. I never thought I'd say this, but Finland is actually now the cotter pin in all of this. And the United Nations, listen, guys, I know it's a bad look. Just understand that the people here don't want to back out of the UN. We don't think you're a waste of money. Also, to all of the people that were receiving buckets of rice from us, that we were paying with basically, that would come up with like 19 to 20 cents out of our paycheck a year to feed you, because we're a combined nation, but when our strength is good, we're actually able to provide for others. And by the way, although I'm not going to tell you that maybe some life choices haven't happened, I understand why you are the family of an Al-Qaeda freedom fighter. I don't agree with your freedom fighting clause. I think it's flawed. But when you're widowed, I don't think you should starve. But that's just me. That makes me snowflake, I guess. By the way, Palestinians, us cutting off aid to that, I understand that that is just going to grow your angst all the more. I understand that the moves that are being made right now to minimize your wants and needs are actually going to create another generation of pissed off people. And we can stand here and lecture you about how you can't be upset, but we're also trying to use a 2025 logic, a project 2025 logic with an ancient problem that we have no respect for whatsoever. But I don't think you should starve either. And oh, by the way, if sometimes some of our funding helped along the way some marginalized citizens within a country that we somehow chose to be able to propagate the idea that there are things like diversity, that there are ideas that there is a safe haven for people that are quote unquote different. The idea that we had to actually exasperate laws to not just say that murder was wrong, but murder of a particular color or race or creed or religious belief is actually on us. It's actually, well, it's kind of sort of a flaw because we can't just say it's right or wrong. We have to say it's really wrong. And that's where we got caught up in it. We started to build all these working mechanisms of will help, but based on these conditions and these whatever. We didn't help you because we love you. We helped you because you were against Russia. Who the hell are we? Why don't we start helping people because they're humans? Why don't we start helping people because I'm going to open the door for you because you're eventually going to open the door for somebody else. And by the way, whether you do or not, or whether you're ever in the situation, that's on you. I get it. But I'm not going to take away my opportunity to do my work so you could take away the opportunity to not do yours. That's your choice. That's free will. That's the reason why we should actually have less laws. And I'm not saying we should be lawless. That ain't it. What I'm saying is that we should be choice with how we approach this problem solving. We don't problem solve. We get obsessed with the problem, not the solution. We love to talk about how much pain we're in. We love to talk about how self-righteous we are. Super problem. Number one problem is that we think we can solve everything with money, with negotiations, with manipulation. If you're a fan of history and don't want to repeat it, the Iran-Contra scandal was basically about how we were funding a war by proxy. And the people that were able to grift off of that, including Oliver North, by the way, who, by the way, goes down as some sort of anti-hero in all of this, who raised his hand and said, I won't niche on anybody and I'd rather do the time. He knew that because had he niched on him, he would have been gone. Because if you know anything about Nicaraguan freedom fighters, they don't like snitches. Snitches get bitches. Bitches stitches because they're Oliver North. Whatever fruit salad I just said, it's Oliver North. One of the problems that we're having, and we've had in this country for a long time, is that you have watched every single congressman go from somewhat of a successful yet modest self-worth. And when I say worth, I mean anywhere from $1 to $10 million. Whether it was daddy's money, whether it was an investment, whether it was a CEO, corporate, whatever, to astronomical levels because they did insider trading or they grifted on a problem and got paid off by the interest group that was funding them. They made an insane amount of money, and it doesn't matter what side they're on. They became that swamp. They became that self-evident interest group to themselves. And by the way, if they solved the problem too quickly, it meant they didn't make as much money. And by the way, there isn't a single one of them that's clean. Not one of them. And yeah, maybe somebody just got paid on the side, or maybe they said, donate to this charity in my name. They still played the game. That's the problem. The game is right there. And if you're going to get elected, you need to be able to kind of like play that game. Because if not, you wouldn't have got the money to get the advertising, and you wouldn't have gotten the obeyance of whatever. Now you're buying the polling places because we know it was manipulated. So how do we fix this? I'm not scared about the destruction at home. I made a post a couple of weeks ago about a banned book. Actually, it was a week ago about a banned book about a little girl that had freckles. And then somebody corrected me by saying, Brandon, but it's on the list. It hasn't actually been banned yet. So technically you're wrong. They couldn't wait to tell me. They couldn't wait to tell me how wrong I was, because I said this book has been banned. Where in reality, what I should have said is a full statement. This book is on a list to be banned. And then I posed the very important question. Why is this a priority? Why is it a priority that a book get banned about a girl that has an acceptance for her freckles? Because it has the word diverse in it. It has the words acceptance in it. And by the way, it was a very niche book. It had maybe sold maybe 4,000 books, and it was only because she was backed. Julianne Moore's a household name. You're going to grab that before you get one from Tina Miller. Mom in Indiana wrote a cute little book about, a peach on a farm. What's more vulnerable than a peach on a farm? I just went elf on you. But can we start to agree that maybe some of this needs to be dismantled? No, I don't like how they're doing it. I think we have children running very important, sharp objects right now. We have very unqualified people. And by the way, do not tell me you're qualified, Kash Patel. Do not tell me that you are qualified, Tulsi Gabbard. I made this analogy earlier today, and when I say this, I know it might upset some people. The most qualified person in the White House right now is J.D. Vance. And I know it's not a popular opinion, but when you look at his actual work history and the fact that he's a lawyer and the fact that he has some modicum of experience in at least civic negotiations, he's the most qualified. But he's become this mouthpiece because his astrology is just this simp that just wants to have friends. He changes his name so he gets accepted into families. Like, there's just critical flaws with every single person. And I'm not saying you can't be flawed. I just like it when, like, people that are responsible for hitting the button and pushing our soldiers isn't an active alcoholic. Kind of a standard. And by the way, I would find that person help. And if I was Joe Biden, I would have had a goddamn honest conversation with my son and say, forget about the problem that you solved. I've lost too many sons already. I don't want to lose you. Will Liz Cheney save us? Will Adam Kinzinger? I mean, now they're going after Schiff. I mean, clearly he made some money, but then again, that's what everybody did. When are we going to start to grow the bone? Remember when you were in grade school? It's kind of the, I think it was a Carlin bit where he's like, if Johnny Finnegan were jumped off the roof, would you jump off the roof? I jumped off of Johnny Finnegan's roof. True story. His real name was Chad, and he became quite the Chad. But anyways, remember that thing when we would say, well, if everybody else is doing it, why are you doing it? And it was actually an exercise in self-moral complex. What do you believe in versus what the mentality of everyone else is? And by the way, every administration has faced something to do with this. When Jimmy Carter had the Iran hostage crisis, he brought everybody into a room and he said, we're going to get these boys back because we're Americans and we need to go get them. By the way, Jimmy Carter was the alpha in this conversation. Jimmy Carter was like, we're going to do this. We're going to make sure that you guys are absolutely going to get off on this. Like we are going to go in there and we're going to get those boys. He says, I want to know by noon tomorrow what we're going to do to get those men back. Because he was losing an election. He was up against it like he's a wimp. The UN was even like, dude, we can't even help you here because you're in so deep with this. This is a US-Iran thing. So Jimmy Carter said, I'm going to be leader here. I'm going to make sure that all of these things are disposed of. We're going to, everything that we locations and Riyadh and, you know, we're going to come in from Egypt and we're going to come in up from Yemen and we're going to and basically the plan was to come in with 4 different tactics. We were going to shoot missiles from the Red Sea, and then we were going to come up. We had stations in the Suez Canal, which was the closest, and it was just an insane. It was an operation. It was a military operation, and it ended up being a disaster because in the middle of all of this, everybody was so gung-ho to do whatever it is they needed to do. The one person in the room, the aviator professional, didn't say in their expertise, where you're trying to land, helicopters can't land. If you do it, you're shutting off the engine at about 15 feet up so it doesn't push the sand up into the engine because it'll stall it out. You're actually literally crash landing, picking them up, restarting, and taking off right away. But the pilots weren't given the insight. It was like an emergency situation. They're like, well, can we do that? They're like, it's like 1 in 20 chances to get out of there alive, is what he should have said. Instead, he said nothing because the group was so goddamn gung-ho. We're going to get our boys back. That's all we really cared about. The Jimmy Carter-led administration said, yes, we're going to sign off on this. Go get our boys back. 25 soldiers died because nobody asked the question, can we do it? They were just trying to do it. But wait, there's more. I am a really big history buff when it comes to certain presidents. And I believe that the last good sitting president we've ever had was assassinated in Dallas, Texas. Because in 1962, we were faced with the Cuban Missile Crisis. But what led up to that? What led up to that was Khrushchev sitting across from Kennedy. Landmark conversations. Like they hadn't talked in like 18 years, right? They were sitting across from one another. And then John turns to Khrushchev and basically says, our concern in Cuba is that you guys are going to use it as a base. And Khrushchev looked him dead in the eye. He says, why would we ever do that? We actually don't want war with the United States. We want to build them up so they love our brand of politics. They love our brand and way of life. To us, we have found a tropical trading partner. We hope that you guys eventually see that now with their resources, we can trade again. That's what Khrushchev said to him in some sort of broken up Cyrillic Russian. 3 weeks later, they found undeniable proof that there were active nuclear missiles in Havana. Active nuclear missiles with dozens more ships on the way with the parts to make more. They were going to put an entire arsenal 90 miles away from the United States. They could have reached up to Washington, D.C. Some say as much as Philadelphia, but whatever. If you can hit the Coca-Cola plant, that's enough for me to go to war. Saying hi to my Georgia constituents. But we understand what went on in the Cuban Missile Crisis, right? Imagine 15, 20 advisors, all military, basically saying the Russians are putting missiles in Havana, in Cuba. We can see it. We saw it from the satellite. We see it from binoculars when we get up to, the 30 miles away. Like, they could see it. They had pictures. Clicks. They were like, that looks like a missile. They're like, this isn't a missile. Yes, it is. You see what I did there? You're welcome. And Kennedy sat there in the room, and the opinions vary to we should at least bomb Havana to we should actually invade Russia. And he had all the other opinions in between. They actually said one of the ideas was while we're bombing Havana, we take over East Berlin. That was literally one of the plays in play. Because they felt that if they could get Germany, East Germans, to unite with Germany, then that would make the rest of the Eastern Bloc fall. That would make all of the other Russian satellites fall. Maybe not necessarily the Russian Federation, but Poland, Czechoslovakia, you understand, right? I mean, Lord knows it destabilized what became Yugoslavia and into the Slavic nations. I mean, we were just torturing them, for crying out loud, with the Cold War. But here's Kennedy sitting in a room hearing all of these military opinions, and every single one of the opinions was warlike. Every single one of them. Kennedy sat there and said, I'm not concerned about the next move. I'm concerned about the next 12 moves. And everybody kind of sat there and said, well, what about the next 12 moves? Well, yeah, once we bomb Havana, let's just take the least risky here, which is still pretty risky. Once we do that, what is Russia's response here? Well, they would probably lob a couple. We'd probably lose like Key West and in Miami, Mar-a-Lago. We'd lose a couple of things, right? By the way, there and said, but then what happens then? Well, then clearly we would have to have a counteroffensive. And he basically just talked at 12 steps out. And basically he's like, so eventually we're just going to get to a point where we're going to either run out of bullets and bombs or we're going to annihilate each other. And the Joint Chief of Staff at the time said basically, well, they started it. Okay. Said, well, Russia started it. They deserve it. And then Kennedy sat back and said, who are we? Who are we? And then somebody said, well, we could kind of have this kind of other thing where we kind of like, we swim to the shore and then we do this and then we spark it. And then what we're going to do is we're going to have the good people of Cuba rise up against them. And then we're going to arm them. And then it's going to be like whatever. And they were still kind of like claymation. And he goes, I don't like any of these ideas. And then he still gave in enough to say like, well, we have to have a response, but we don't want to start a war. Why don't we look to embrace the freedom fighters, create the Bay of Pigs, which fucking went horrible. Again, people still died, but it was the lesser of every evil. It was the lesser of this nuclear fallout we were facing. It was the lesser of this escalated rampage that we would have had on one another. And even though soldiers died, and even though it was probably unnecessary, it was also necessary in the moment. I want people that make decisions like that in charge. I want people to say, this is a hard decision and some things aren't going to go well, but this is what we signed up for. Not loyalty, not, oh my God, I'm king. He called himself a king, guys. Like, a king doesn't make good decisions. A king just moves pawns. I want somebody that is in charge of lives, that understands what it's like to eat corn because there's nothing else in the fridge. I want somebody that recognizes the idea that if they fail, they actually get 10 steps back, not a reorganization for them to do it again 8 years later. I think the reform that's going to come out of this are going to be everything from the number of times that you can declare bankruptcy as a corporation to the nonsense of what the limitations of the law truly should be when it comes to your rights. We seem to have these unlimited rights. We seem to have these ideas that if you just sit there long enough and not say anything, you'll never be proven guilty, because it is such an overabundance and cumbersome thing to prove that somebody's guilty. 97% of all guilty convictions are a plea where the defendant says, guilty, I'm guilty of this. I will accept this plea. Otherwise, they just sit there and not say anything. Just like Kash Patel did when he saw and had firsthand knowledge that Donald Trump was meeting diplomats from all around the world to negotiate payouts, next steps, and technologies for his next election. It's clear as a bell. Delay, delay, delay. Actually, a very interesting thing about Mar-a-Lago. Mar-a-Lago actually came to be because of the Cuban Missile Crisis. It was actually a very kind of small compound, if you will. Like it was a luxury space, but it wasn't necessarily what it is today. And there you go. When you do a little bit of research on what Donald Trump did to obtain Mar-a-Lago, he's a disgusting human. Basically, he tried to lowball the previous owner, and the previous owner actually left it to the United States because he wanted to donate it so that it was a Camp David, so that then they could meet with Caribbean and South American countries, Central American countries. He wanted it to be like, hey, they might not want to come all the way up to Maryland. They might not want to go all the way to Washington. This would be an opportunity for you to still be on their turf, in a tropical location, and be able to do that. Well, the United States basically was like, listen, we have too many properties as it is. We're kind of stuck with this. In the early 70s, they started to divestiture it, right? Yeah, the Meriwether Post estate. That's exactly what it is. And isn't that funny? Because I would believe that, by the way, Debbie, that Epstein had an interest in it as well. But anyways, and I do know somebody that lived down the street from one of Epstein's places, and they basically tore it down. It was like an $8 million home, and they took down the whole thing because it was Epstein in it. And by the way, they took a lot of pictures and they took a lot of evidence out of it. Just to let you know, it's in a warehouse somewhere. But Mar-a-Lago, when Trump was denied it, he said, fine, then I'm going to buy everything around it. And he basically turned that part of West Palm Beach into an absolute slum. He wouldn't keep up the property. He'd let it overgrow. He put in, I forget what he did put in a business. It was almost like it was a fertilizer business, like on the water. Like it was like a really not cool thing. So then the price dropped. They couldn't sell it because he basically gutted the area. So they came down, and I think he paid more than what he wanted to, but it's not the point. The point is that Trump manipulated things. And by and large, I mean, we always kind of like celebrate the man a little bit when somebody gets over on the man. Kind of like, ha ha, fine then, it kind of worked or whatever. But then you start to see like patterns of behavior out of people. I mean, if I was to do something like that, I'd do it once, maybe twice, because I got good at it. But he does that on the regular. That's part of how he got Trump Tower. He bought the two towers on either side of it and boarded them up. Right? Yeah, I've been to Palm Beach, and I have some clients there over the years. And one of the things that I recognized, first of all, my demographics typically don't connect with that. I don't go after that. I've met people that are like, I'm going to go with the most famous person in the room, and I'm going to be their psychic. Oh, it lost me a little bit. I think it is but generally that's not my bag. I'm in for the healing. I'm not here for the money. And I think people people tend to realize this a little too late, that when people that are obsessed with money want to buy you, they want to buy your answers, right? They want to buy who you are. And that was Donald Trump's world. He bought Melania. You guys do know that it was a wholesale cash purchase, because he met her at some sort of like beauty model talent thing. And the guy says, "Hey, I'd really like to date her." And then he goes, "You can't take one of my models. You can't take her." And Donald was like, "How much?" He paid money for Melania, like a mail order bride, right? These are the people making decisions. So look for Donald Trump to use some of these old tactics. Make Palestine look like condos, just like Jesus talked about. I mean, that was really, it's ironic. The limitations of the Bible is that it's basically about 100 square miles worth of land in the Bible. They refer to Rome, they refer to Egypt, but they never talk, they talk a little bit about the Ethiopians. They talk about the Mesopotamians, but the largest population in the world at the time were the Chinese and the Southeast Asians. Not even mentioned. By the way, if you really want to get good at questioning things, here's my question that I ask myself all the time now. What was Jesus doing between the age of 12 and 30? If we're so good at history, if we're so good at figuring out the patterns of the world, why can we not find a shred of evidence of what he was doing during that time? Now, by the way, I'm not in the camp of debunking anybody. I want proof. I'm going to keep searching for proof because I trust what somebody has said to me. And when he was a Buddhist, I think what Jesus really understood was the idea of being one within themselves. Because when he was 12 years old, which, by the way, astrological signs, everybody, 12, apostles 12, he wasn't teaching Christianity. He was teaching Judaism. When he came back after the age of 30, he was teaching Buddhism. So in our construct, if we are currently living at a time where we are making a transition between one mindset to another mindset, both in peaceful nature, both in peaceful alliance, both can shake hands and get along and not be like, well, your God is better than my God? I don't think so. Have you tried a good matzo ball? I don't think so. While the Buddhist sits there and says, yes, but I understand who I am. I don't need to externalize it with a God that I can't prove. Aha! Caught me again. In the meantime, Shavashiza. Let's go. You have a good Kanish and everybody gets along. But this idea that we own our creationism, the idea that we own our God in a way that it is a petulant God that just hates other people that don't look like us or act like us or believe in the amendments that we believe in, is a wholesale hijacking, guys. It's a wholesale hijacking. This isn't about being self-righteous. It's about internalizing it, because anyone that's ever done any work on your faith knows that the brand that is out there now, this part that beats itself and says, you are not worthy. You must do this. You must repent. I have talked to no less in my time over the past 3 years of travel. I have met no less than 24, maybe even 36 people that have left their church because they said, if you didn't vote for Donald, then you're a sinner. I got news for you. The first one to be judged is that asshole. He ruins, he breaks, if not ruins, every single one of the 10 commandments. The Beatitudes are just hearsay to him. And by the way, the idea of personal accountability on any level escapes him because it's convenient. He's too busy trying to be right and accepted. And he puts don't it's funny. The idea of Christianity, thank you for that, by the way, Debbie. The idea of Christianity, if you study ancient religions at all, you will eventually come to a brand called Zoroastrian. Zoroastrons. In what that and what they're discovering is how much all of the tenets of Christianity are an intersectant merge of this Zoroastrian faith that believed in winged creatures that came down from above, that were connected to our DNA split and our upgrade all the way through it. They gave birth and rose to the idea of giant men called Nephilim. Called Nephilim. And by the way, they're mentioned in the Bible because they need some credibility that they came from something. And what we're starting to realize is that religion has been wholesale hijacked time and time again. It was done by the Romans. It was done by Constantine. It's being done now. The sun god, Jesus, was born on Sunday. He is the Son of God. He's a story. And had he been a real person, we would find more evidence here about what he did between 12 and 30. But that's what they do. They miss the details. They don't give you the details. They don't tell you that that code was actually written because it was a workaround in 1987 when they started to find these people had aged out and they hadn't actually taken them out of the system. Any coder that had worked there for more than 15 years would have heard the stories of yesteryear about how during the Y2K they had to deal with this problem in Social Security Administration, and they made in these bugs, these purposeful bugs that made people look like they were getting paid, but we knew full well that they were being taken out. But they fired all those people that could tell the tale because they wanted to create a new tale. And that is why you burned the sheep. You sacrificed the age of Aries so you would forget it. You sacrificed the lamb so it no longer represented the age we were in and the ideas that were there. You sacrificed it so it went away. So the age of Pisces could come in and you could worship the man with the two fishes. Pisces. Maybe they're just getting us ready for the age of Aquarius. Maybe they're burning down all of these historical values so we don't remember. So then when the new one gets here, it's the new shiny thing and it becomes the savior. That it literally is misleading us so we get duped because something bigger is coming. They are being an agent of something they don't understand, something greater than themselves. But that doesn't make it great again. What it does is makes us prepared because we see through it. Our curiosity has pierced the veil. Our resilience will make it outlast anything that they're going to do. Take in the news, take it in bites. Don't feel like you have to live your day by what Kash Patel tells you about the FBI. He's full of shit. They're all full of shit. And that's been the problem. This country was formed out of the rejection of our belief systems in other places. And then it was formed on the backs of people that were in the middle of a tribal war, that were sold into slavery. And it was built upon that. It was built on the poverty of people from other countries that were escaping whatever persecution they're. And instead of saying, I want to create something that's a safe haven because this is what I looked for when I searched, they were removed enough from the original story that they forget, Donald Trump, that you were a fucking immigrant. that you forget, Elon Musk, that your father was a Nazi sympathizer, that you forget that Kash Patel, you were born in this country and it's the only reason why you're a citizen here, because you're trying to eliminate your story. We have to hang on to origin stories. We have to hold true the fact of who we are, and we don't have to shame it. I watch this all the time when I'm coaching, when I'm doing spiritual work. People need to find an enemy of motivation. It is a human nature thing that I cannot understand. I think it's a conditioning more than it is a human nature. They don't just say their ex is bad. They have to create this narcissistic diatribe about the one time they threw a fucking plate of food. And I'm like, how many times did they do it? Well, once is enough. I feel abandoned. Stop. We create these things of just this opposition to prove a motivation, for justification of breaking away, for a justification of saying we're not with them anymore. It's a justification that we break those bonds so that then we say, oh my God, I'm going to go ahead and do that, instead of trying to work through it. We look for justifications to villainize something. Oh, I don't go to that grocery store anymore. I found out that they were not nice to a customer once. Guess what? They all suck. Guess what? You're trying to boycott everybody under the sun. There's something wrong with all of them. You're looking for justifications to be angry. And I'm not saying that you can't stand in your truth, and I'm not saying you can't vote with your dollar. What I am saying is that check yourself, because they're not checking themselves. We've got to double down on our actions. We've got to double down on our behavior. We've got to make sure that we're clear with who we are, or we're going to get lost in whatever muddled diatribe they give us. I'm sorry, did you guys just want me to talk about how great Venus is? They're going to outlaw all forms of knowledge. They're going to outlaw astrology at some point. They're going to demonize it. They're going to demonetize it. They're going to talk about how it is no longer a futuristic. It is just spell casting and whatever. But if you sign up for my emails, you'll still be able to get a hold of me until they can get a hold of me. And I'm going to stand in my truth. And by the way, I'm not trying to create an enemy here. And I know some of you watch this that are just oppositionally opposed to everything that I've said from the beginning. You know, you guys know who you are. The ones that say, oh, you were wrong about the Ukraine war. If you really listen to my videos, I actually wasn't wrong at all. Oh, you were wrong about the election being stolen. Okay, just wait. I know that you watch this because you can't wait for me to slip up. You can't wait for me to say something that you're like, haha, I got you. First of all, thanks for watching. Second of all, I want you to recognize that I know who I am. Do you know who you are? Because it's only a matter of time before they get to you. Before they get to the thing that you'll be offended about, the thing that you'll feel whatever, and then you will be driven by that. Don't you see that they're trying to create enemies because they know that enemies create action? Now take that into your life coaching session. So-and-so's the enemy. I have to get above that. No, you don't. You have to create your own goddamn standard. You have to create your own ideas on who you want to be. You have to have behaviors and actions that are in line with who you are. It's called authenticity. It is the only thing that will win in this climate. It is the only thing that you can overcome this bastion of nonsense that's going on. There are people that will start out authentic. And by the way, it's a struggle. I'm not saying you're going to be perfect in your authenticity. People bash Joe Rogan all the time, and I get it. He's become a mouthpiece for whatever the crap garbage is going on there. He also manipulates just enough information. By the way, we all do it. We all do it. We all do it. Everybody does this, right? But if an enemy is created, if an oppositional defiance, if a dyad happens, right? If duality occurs, 9/11 is an unsolved mystery. It is a mystery of physics. It is a mystery as to why the vice president would call down planes that would otherwise been in the air to save us from horrific things. By the way, lesser of two evils, I get it. But they got a job to do, and Dick Cheney didn't let him do it. It is a mystery as to why it is all that evidence was suddenly whisked away to another country. It is insane that we've never really held anybody accountable because we think we have 21 terrorists that were well paid through the Saudi government, through our government. There are mysteries upon mysteries as to why nobody will ever be held accountable because such a cluster was created that we would never get to the bottom of it. And I'm tired of being called a simpleton. Like, oh, you're just, you're thinking it's an inside job, blah, blah, blah. No, I actually think it's a complex heist. I also think that's what's going on now. It's a complex heist. Forget about the price of eggs and bread. Forget about your 401k. Forget about the demonetization of the dollar that's in your pocket. Do you know who you are? Do you know who you are? I've actually come to be quite snarky. I know, hard to believe. But one of the things that I started to say with people that are so willing to defend what Trump is doing, like he's rooting out all of the evil. He's making sure that we're find out FAFO and blah, blah, blah. Then you know what? It's about time. Schumer's next. That's my favorite one. Chuck Schumer is as guilty as the rest of them. I don't think you guys have gotten my political edge yet, have you? I wanted Kamala to win because I wanted there to be an opportunity to say, we still got things to address. Can we start to address them? Like the corruption in Congress, like the corruption in the judiciary. Like, can we start to address these things? But it's not because she was going to actually change anything. It was because I didn't want to use the stick of dynamite on the anthill. I didn't want to, use the bazooka when you need a paring knife. It's this exaggeration of greatness. It's this exaggeration of saying, like, hey, look at how great I am. I'm able to do this. By the way, I'm King Trump. Our forefathers are like, give me my fucking musket. Who is this asshole? By the way, I talk to dead people. I'm kind of sort of telling you something here. If I was Donald Trump, I would not stand downwind in a cemetery where United States soldiers are buried. I just ran. Funny, I should say that. I would not goad countries into thinking that they're lesser than what they are because they're part of your ultimate ploy. Because it's not going to go well. It's not going to go well for you. It's not going to go well for your country. So in our act of isolationism, I'm telling you, be authentic, be who you are. Find ways to be authentic. Find joy during this time. It goes against the energy they want. They want you to be afraid. They want you to be in fear. They don't want you to do anything. They want you to curl up and say, oh, whatever. But they want you to spend their money. Oh, no. Still go on vacation. It's okay. Planes, couple of accidents. What are you going to say? What are you going to do? What do you say? What do you know? We have to be a vibration that they can't tax, that they can't touch, that they can't jail. Get good at being alone sometimes. Get good at meeting new people. Get good at creating an energy that is positive. People that are highly sensitive to energy think that they have to run and hide. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't have time to adjust and recoil and spend time by yourself and do things alone. I'm not saying that that's not valuable. But you know how people that are energetic value feel better? They meet people, they talk to people, they do things in groups, they have friends, they have conversations. Do you know why? People that are sensitive with energy feel better when they help people see another solution, another way of life, another perspective. They actually get better as energetic beings. They get better as energetic beings when they help another person see a different perspective. That's what a good light worker is. Guys, you've been coming to this for a while, and I've been searching for the words. I really have been. I've been looking for terminology that fits. And you know what I did? And I put it down. I just put it down. I didn't listen to the news. I didn't click on YouTube. I think I had like I you know had a metal playlist at one point. By the way, the drumming's going along just fine. By the way, I'm thinking about maybe doing a stream for my behind the scenes guests. You'll be like, oh, he's drumming. And you'll be like, Jesus, he's drumming. Anyways, I had a fantastic group yesterday at Nurture Salon up in Saratoga. Lisa's got just an incredible energetic space. She's doing it right. She's working at it though. She's making changes. She's expanding. Be authentic. Do things of good. I'm going to start going there about once a month just to do readings out of it. I'll do, whatever. Come on in, stop in, do tarot reading, do a mediumship reading. There you go. We'll meet up. You see her new shop. It's beautiful. It's great. I want to work with people that are authentic. Thank you, Anne. I'll do some more piano playing. Don't you worry. I've been busy creating. You guys are going to see a whole bunch of stuff coming your way. Should I talk about this? By the way, if you haven't already, I'm seeing about 7 or 8 of you have signed up for the website today. Thanks so much for jumping on. Few each day. I'll tell you, we're growing. We're finding new ways. I've got a lot of stuff to get out there between here and the end of the year. Funny you should say that's coming out. The Merkaba Chronicles. I'm in the final stages of it. Those of you that don't know what the Merkaba Chronicles are about, it's actually a series of short stories where you also get the astrology lesson with it as well. It's a great way to teach astrology. It's also a great bear me for just a second. Yeah, Pisces season is creative. Because that's how I run. I run on creativity. And it's one of the ways that, and this is what I've realized, and I'm going to be, this is me being honest with who I am. One of the things that I started to realize is that my creativity was a way for me to overcome. I've never been diagnosed with ADHD, but I definitely get distracted because I've got more than a few people talking to me at a time. And a lot of times it's connected to that. It's connected to the idea that if I can distract myself, long enough and kind of stick, as I'm sitting here kind of like rambling, that's kind of interesting. That's kind of funny. Like the last thing I did was erased. Yeah, I'm gonna put this right here. Oh yeah, there we go. We're gonna go full steam on this one. I'm going to let you know that this is probably the last of the 3 books that I'm going to have out later this year, and it's important to me because it's kind of like a year-long journey as I come up to my next birthday here, 52, in case you guys were wondering. You're like, I thought he would be. I'm actually going to be releasing. So first thing comes out is funny you should say that, along with the shirt. I'll show it to you again. And then I have the Merkaba Chronicles, which will be a story of a fantastic. Oh, and send that to me. 52 or 25? No, more like 5115. I'll do you one better, kiddo. Let me just wait for this to load. But the Merkaba Chronicles will really kind of be a launch of a new thing, and I have a character that will actually become very important to me in my life and what have you. And of course, here is this, but I'm going to show you the cover here. So the last one of the 3 are going to be this book of poetry. It's called 5115. I have a poem that is actually going to be headed into some contests. It's pretty solid. How the Brokenhearted Heal, and poetry that never lets you feel old. And by the way, if you get the Van Halen mix on this, kudos. If you don't, okay. I'll also share with you that it has a lot of emotional turns. It's, poetry is really kind of like stages that you're in when you. It's also being able to do something I've always wanted to do. I've actually had poetry published before. I've had lyrics that have turned into songs. I mean, you wouldn't have heard of them. I've actually done a whole bunch of creative things along the way. I actually had a greeting card once. American Greetings. I'll wrap up with this story because it's kind of fun. American Greetings greeting cards had this thing in the back of, it was like Hip Parader or Circus. It was one of them. And they said, hey, send us your ideas for a card. If yours gets chosen, you will win $50 or whatever, and you'll get, one of your cards. And I'm like, okay. So I wrote this card, and basically, they wanted you to do front cover and inside, and then roughly like what the picture would be, and they even said, hey, listen, we have creative design, we own it, blah blah blah, all that other stuff. And I basically made up a card of like, I sent them for like 10 of them. And one of them was actually pretty poignant. It basically said something along the lines of like anyone that opens this, I dare anyone to open this that thinks they're a good that thinks they should have a happy birthday or something like that. It was topical. And on the inside it said, yeah, I told you so. Whereas basically the front cover was really the card, and then the inside was like a snarky thing. And they did it, and they put like a mirror, like one of those like shady, like really kind of like tinfoily mirrors things, so that you see yourself when you opened it. It said, see, I told you so, or whoever opens this is, supposed to have a great birthday, and whatever. And they like that. Yeah, and it was, the American Greeting Card Company was, it was up against Hallmark and whatever. And I'll never forget it. They actually sent me like a Visa gift card. This is in like 92, 93. Like I was but a young lad. I mean, I probably spent it on, Scorpion tapes and Metallica. It went to Tape World. It went to Strawberries. Don't worry. Strawberries, records and tapes, formerly Record Town. But it's a way to be able to, do that creativity thing. And one of the things that I've learned through writing these stories, through doing the poetry, which by the way, I've always written. I have 10 books in me of the poetry. And, when we're getting into the final phases of, rolling up our sleeves, doing some editing, all that other good stuff, I get so jazzed when I've created there is a character I cannot wait to tell you about. She is a strong, independent woman that travels time, that sees the world for who she is. She's got a mascot with her at all times. It's the way that I can teach intuition again. I've taught all the classes, guys. I can talk about chakras till you're blue in the face. We can talk about pendulums. We can talk about past lives. We can talk about animal magic. We can talk about whatever. I want to grow this. And I have a passion project that I started a couple of years ago, and a whole host of reasons why it stopped. Like, I see this as like major motion picture stuff, like kind of cool. But I know that it's going to write the rest of the story when it's supposed to, because the story is going to tell itself. And it's about everything that we're going through. The division of the masculine and feminine. Like, my commentary on masculine and feminine divine is that we villainize masculine divine to make feminine divine better, and feminine divine like can't push on the gas because it can't do what masculine divine has done, and masculine divine isn't over feminine divine. So we're really realizing that we have to have a compromise where we're both needed instead of this villainization. It's the same story over and over again. I started writing it 4 years ago. And it's an epic. It is an Odyssey, Iliad level thing. This is go away for 3 months and finish the book type of thing. And I think when I get there, I think it'll tell the story of this fantasy world that is really reflective of what we're going through here, up to and including Mother Nature. And I think sometimes we give Mother Nature a little too much credit, and sometimes I think we take away all of her wanton will all at the same time. Either way, she hasn't been treated fairly one way or the other. We have all of these lessons that we're learning on a higher level that I'm just telling you, your purpose is to be authentic. Everything else is just horseshoes and hand grenades, man. Close enough, right? Pema Chodron talks about how the universe is the weather. Everything else is just rain. In other words, the patterns will repeat themselves. You have to live through the day-to-day. The metaphor of the tarot. You have the hierarchy. You have the major arcana, which is the archetypes of things, the things that we go through, the phases in life, the changes that we have. Then you have the minor arcana, which is the details in which we have to do them, the challenges in which we face, how we approach things, right? We have to embrace the creative if that's your authenticity. We have to embrace the stoicism if that's your authenticity. We have to embrace the nurturer, the warrior, the leader. We have to embrace the authenticity. I hope you guys have noticed the change. They came to me and told me about it. I'm glad you are here. I'm glad that you are following along. Thanks so much for being part of my journey. I'm going to give you guys a heart tap, remind one another that we love and care for each other, and to remind you to simply keep going. Hope to see you guys a little later on in the week. New software, new stuff being put in. Rock and roll. I'll see you guys soon. Keep going.